So a lot of people looking to buy a home have watched those HGTV shows where they're flipping homes and they look immaculate. They came from crap and now they just look so awesome. And people are like, man, I want to buy one of those. Well, before you get into that, not everything's like those TV shows when it comes to flipping a home. So today I'm going to talk through 3 things you need to be looking for when you're looking at houses that have been flipped. What's up, guys? It's Mark Can here, your local real estate agent here in the Phoenix area. And today we're going to be talking through the flips and what to be looking for when you're going and considering to buying one of those. But before we get into any of that, if you could subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it. Button right there. Like the video, share it with your friends, trying to be a resource. Again, not trying to be famous. I'm trying to be real with people and just trying to give them the honest truth of what's actually going on in real estate. So share it with your friends. That way it can help. But let's get into it. All right, so when we talk about flips, many people think of the TV shows on HGTV and all this different stuff. And to be honest with you, I get it because people are like, oh man, that stuff looks amazing. And listen, they do high quality work on those TV shows, but that's not always reality. So it's one of those that when we have a lot of flipping companies, and there are a lot. And so for me, one of the first things I look at, and this is not number one, but just to give you a time frame when we're looking at flips, how long did it take them to do it? You know, typically flips can take anywhere from 1 to 6 months. The faster it's done, probably the less they did to the house. Just kind of as a rule of thumb. So something to consider. So that's something as a real estate agent I can look at and kind of see what's going on. But that'll lead us into the first thing that I'm looking for. So there are a lot of things that I look for when I go to a flip. But we're going to cover 3 today. And the first one is baseboards. And people go, baseboards? What are you talking about? So just to give you a little preface here of when a lot of people flip homes, typically they'll redo the floors, they'll paint, and maybe redo the counters. And that's typically kind of your generic one because it does change the house a lot. So why do I look at baseboards? And the funniest thing is I started this at the beginning of my career because some information that people were giving me from people I talked to that flipped houses. And one of the things that I found was the baseboard. So if they replace the floor in the house, I look at the baseboard because throughout the home, if there are consistent gaps between the baseboard, they're missing a detail there where it looks bad. Like if you have your floor and then you have your baseboard and there's a gap in between, it looks bad. And typically what that means is they put the baseboards in before they put the floors in. And so for them, they didn't want to go back and fix it. And to me, that's a small detail because when it comes to flips, we're looking for minute details. Did they pay attention to the details? Good flips, they pay attention to the details. They're making sure that that stuff looks good. So I look at baseboards because I say, okay, did they do that with the floors? Did they actually put the floors in first before they put the baseboards in? And a lot of times it's like, well, maybe they didn't. So what else am I going to find? And that leads me to number 2. All right, so the second thing that I typically look at when I go to a flip is I'm looking at the kitchens and the bathrooms. What did they do? What kind of quality is it? Because trust me, I have been to some homes where I walked in and went, they did this themselves. They didn't pay somebody to do this. They did this themselves. And some of those may not even be flips, but maybe that's somebody that was working on their own house and did it themselves. And you can tell because maybe the level of mastery is not there, where you're just like, well, you're not as good as this as you think you are. I mean, I have walked in some doozies. So for me, I'm looking at the bathrooms. All right, if they tiled, did they do it well? Did they grout everything? Did they seal everything? When we're looking at kitchens, you can tell a lot of times because cabinets, if they didn't replace them, which a lot of them don't, they refinish them. What that means is they sand them down, they repaint them. Well, some of them don't do the whole job when it comes to the cabinets. They'll not sand them down, they'll just repaint them, and it looks bad. And that's immediately a red flag for me because it's like, okay, like they didn't take the time to actually do this right because refinished cabinets can look good, but you have to do it right. And so a lot of flippers don't want to do that. They don't want to take the time to do that. So that's a red flag that I'm looking for. What kind of counters did they put in? Did they put them in well? Are they secured? I've walked in, you pull on the counter and it's not secured. So it doesn't happen that often, but it's one of those that I am looking at the kitchens and the bathrooms because that's typically one of the things they also redo. And I'm looking, okay, did they do that well? All right, so the last thing that I'm really looking for, and this is probably a big one as well, is, okay, did they touch any of the big ticket items, right? Did they replace windows if the home is older? Because homes that are older, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, might have single pane glass. Did they replace those? Did they replace sliders, doors? Big things like the air conditioning, the roof. Did they do anything to those? Because a lot of cheap flippers won't touch any of that stuff. They'll say, nope, we're just redoing the floors and maybe the counters and we'll paint. And that's what a lot of the flippers do. And so that's one of the things when I walk into homes with people, I'm looking for this stuff because I'm like, hey, I'm pointing this stuff out because it may not be a quality flip. And maybe they skip some steps on some stuff that you can't see. So that's something to watch out for because if, I've been to some really good flips. I've helped clients buy some really good flips where they replace the roof, they replace the air conditioner, they replace the windows. And you're like, wow, they really had attention to detail with this stuff. And they're doing a good job. Like I know of a couple of companies that do flips and they do a good job. And then I've run into a lot of the small ones you've never heard of. And you're like, oh, well, okay, may not be the best. They're just trying to flip and make a quick buck. So that's something to watch out for because did they touch the big ticket items if needed? Again, maybe not every house needs that, but that's the things you should be looking for. Now, there's more stuff that we can talk about with pools and solar and different things like that. And I would love to have that conversation with you because those are three main things that I'm looking for, but there's so much more I'm looking for when I'm going to a flip. And I talk through that with my clients because I want them to understand what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing. I would love to help you with that. If you're looking to buy a home, please reach out to me. My information is in the description below. Guys, you've been listening to The Real.